Hi, my name is Pete Coppolillo. I'm the Executive Director of Working Dogs for Conservation, and I'm going to share some work that we did, led primarily by our law enforcement lead, training lead, Lauren Wendt, looking at two new technologies. Well, one is new and one is newly cost effective. That opens some new doors for anti-poaching, anti-trafficking, and are particularly well suited for elephant conservation. So, as you all know, um, wildlife crime has many parts, and these two tools really just apply to site-based. One of them to site-based security, keeping people out of places they're not supposed to be, like specifically protected areas. Could also apply to other areas like customs ports or something like that. And then the second one focuses on trafficking, specifically with respect to containers. So I'll share the details as we get there. This first piece of technology actually it was a long time coming. Um, about 6 years ago, when we took and installed 4 dogs in Serengeti, um, I ran into an old friend of mine named Steve Gulick, who many of you may know. He was working for an organization called Resolve, who've been our primary collaborators on this part. And what he was doing was putting together a, a gadget they call Trail Guard. Essentially, it's a trail camera, remote camera, but it has two important features. One is that it has artificial intelligence chip in it, so that it can interpret what's in the image, and the second piece is that it has a sat phone wired in, and that combination of features allows them to place the cameras and identify when someone enters a protected area and notify the the anti-poaching warden, and in the case of combining with dogs, the dog team, in real time. And so what it creates is a very powerful combination. So what you see on the left panel there, that's the sensor. Now, that was the sensor back then in 2017, and the middle panel was the box. I'll show you an update on it. But let me first tell you about the first deployment. While the dogs were just learning to track, they got an alert, and DJ and his handler there, Masaba, DJ's the Malinois, and Masaba was his handler at the time, deployed and ran a 12-kilometer track. They arrested 6 poachers and confiscated over 900 kilos of bushmeat. Sorry, 900 pounds, 400 kilos of bushmeat. And they've continued to put up similar results like that. So it's an incredibly powerful combination. And since that time, Steve Gulick, Eric Dinnerstein, and the whole team, there's a big team at Resolve, has been working to refine it and make these more widely available. The refinements are that it's smaller, more smaller and more reliable. So in that lower left photo, that's Steve holding up 3 different cameras. Those are the sensors for 3 different cameras. And you can see they're very easily camouflaged and concealed. On the top photo there, the other really cool development is that they are able now to be placed higher and to shoot down at an oblique angle. And that's really helpful for concealing the cameras, because people tend to look laterally and not up for threats. And they can be placed farther away from trails to detect poachers and incursions. And then the multi-panel there is a test from South Africa, and all of those little white boxes are called bounding boxes. Those are detecting people in all of those variety of situations. So what you can see is they're coming, they're going. Some of them are in cars, some of them are partial. These cameras have been detecting people sitting down in a car, only their torso, sort of bust up is visible. They've gotten really good at this. And just to emphasize, even if with a camera by itself that alerts the team, an anti-poaching unit can be on that site within minutes. But even a 5-10 minute head start to a poacher may be long enough for them to completely escape or hide or do whatever. In search and rescue circles, dogs track regularly, tracks their hours, sometimes even days old. And so having tracks that are just minutes old is a huge advantage. And quite honestly, it's like shooting fish in a barrel for dogs. So there is enormous
They're here in the
demand,
United States
for increasing
canine school. They and Gene.
Turn off the sound on there. There's huge demand, and so this is Christopher Mwamba. That's Gene, who came to the States this spring in order to train and learn how to track, because they're adding cameras to their dog teams, and so we've also seen a lot of places, sites that have cameras now are interested in adding dog teams because they go together. They complement each other so much, so well. So we're really excited about that. I hope to come back in the future and tell you all about similar results and the impact of putting these cameras out. The second technology is actually a relatively old one, and it's applied to containers. It's called RASCO. And that's just an acronym for Remote Air Sampling for Canine Olfaction. And this is work we did in collaboration with colleagues from WWF and Traffic. In a nutshell, RASCO works by evacuating, sucking air out of a container through the vent or through the seam on the door, and passing that air through a filter, and then presenting those filters to the dogs. And if the item, their target item, the target odor, is present inside the container, that odor is trapped on the filter, and then the dogs will alert to it. What we did, and this technology, like I said, has been around for quite a while. The challenge is that it's prohibitively expensive. So it's tens of thousands of dollars to set up a RASCO system under the current situation, and it's hundreds of dollars per sample. Per air sample evacuated out of a container, and that's just prohibitive for lots of NGOs, host country governments, all sorts of stuff. So we set out to create a much less expensive apparatus, and these are photos of us testing it. Basically, it's around $100 for the vacuum. It's battery operated, and the setup. So within the other tools, everything you need, it's within a couple $100 to set up a system, and it's less than $1 per sample. So that puts it really within reach of virtually everybody in the world. So what you're looking at there is the left panel. That's Lauren evacuating air from an experimental container, also known as a trash can, with very small quantities of ivory in it. We tested with ivory and shark fin. And in the middle there, then those filters come out of the vacuum, go into the little stainless steel containers that Renee is sorting and cleaning there. And then on the right side, you see Lauren again with Finn and screening. And we put those containers on a scent wheel, that's called. And then the dog can screen 6 to 8 of them. You can double them up and do as many as 12. You can line up scent wheels and do a whole bunch of them at once. Containers for as many samples as you've got. So I'll just give you a little more background on the setup here. I'm going to show you a video, and the target in this video is in can number 2. And what Finn is trained to do is to stop and hold her nose on that sample when she detects it. There's also a camera. We mount a camera on the wall so you can do remote observations. That's to allow double-blind screening so that there's no one in the room to cue or tip off the dog through body language or breathing or anything like that. So it happens remotely. And then in the other cans, on the scent wheel, are what we call distractor odors. So those are things like hair gel. We can put cat food, dog food, coffee, blank filters, anything you want in there. So that the idea is that, you do that during training so dogs learn that they're not going to get a reward for those things. And during testing, it's so that the dog can't just go to the one can that has the odor. So here's Finn. She is ready to go. Handler leaves the room, and she's told to start. Nothing in 1. And there's her indication. In this case, then the beep tells her she's correct, and then she gets to go for a food reward. You don't need fancy apparatus or double blind or any of that stuff in order to do this. These are what we call snorkels. They're just made from PVC pipe. They're easy to clean and remove odor from. And this is Benny, and he's going to screen. He's going to screen one of these. So what you're going to see, similar alert. Benny holds his nose on the target odor. These could be set up in a line. The orientation doesn't really matter. And there's his alert. And there's his paycheck. That's how Benny gets paid from a game of tug. Okay, so this is it's a great way. What it allows us to do is sample far more containers far more quickly than would ever be possible opening and looking inside of them, unpacking all of those things. It can be done without disturbing the customs seal on a container. So now where we're going with this is to combine it with good intelligence. There's some very promising work looking at the indicators of contraband being in containers based on things like their bill of lading, the inventory of the containers, the route, the number of stops, things like that. And so we can go from having a whole shipyard full of containers to screen to just a handful that are high probabilities of having contraband in them, like ivory, for example. And I also just want to sort of revisit. These were small experimental trials with tiny amounts of ivory, and we were getting accuracies, sensitivities as high as 90%. I looked up a few of the most recent ivory seizures, and they were on the order of 6,000, 8,000, 9,000 kilograms of ivory. So that's a lot of ivory, and that's a lot of odor. So the probability of dogs hitting on those is just much, much higher. So it's wonderful. We're really excited to pilot this, and we're going to pilot it with Conservation South of Luangwa, one of our longest standing programs, working on the Chapata border, where a lot of container traffic goes through. I also just want to touch on as we wind up here that we push all these methods out. We share them with everybody. Everybody who's credible dog teams anyway is. IEF supported us with, in the early days, we called it the Conservation Detection Dog Network for Africa. That has now grown to over 200 dogs and handlers in Africa. And here in the United States, the Conservation Canine Officers Association is actually now 32 states. The graphic says 30. It's grown to 32 since I made that slide. And 2 Canadian provinces. So that's 400 dogs and handlers that we can push this technology out and get them starting on a process like this very, very quickly. So we're excited about it. I also just want to mention that everybody loves a good dog story. The press comes out to see dogs, and that's really powerful because it allows us to tell the story, whether it's creating awareness of an issue or a threat to wildlife, or to build constituencies, or even justify our budgets to people like Congress and all of that. So very last slide is. This is our wildlife crime from our wildlife crime law enforcement work. But I just wanted to mention, we've got ecological monitoring, we do biosecurity, environmental justice, and most importantly from this slide is that we also we work in a variety of capacities, from one-off consultations to actually bringing our dogs and our people on the ground for a project, a discrete time, beginning and end, and then we leave and go home. Or doing capacity building, starting from scratch, building teams, dogs and handlers, training their staff from the ground up, and then supporting them for the life of the program. So I would be thrilled if anyone wants to hear more or reach out. And thank you for listening. And here are Lauren's and my coordinates. And I look forward to interacting with some or all of you in the future. Thank you.